But I just want to talk about a couple of things here. The first is the theory of Panspermia. There are some who theorize that man is not the first intelligent creature that is here on Earth, and that before man was on Earth, aliens came to Earth, and the aliens are in fact the parents to Adam and Eve. Okay. By the way, I mean, some of this stuff sounds crazy, but you get out there and it's all over the place. This, of course, is flatly contrary to Scripture and the entire sacred tradition of the Church. We have to ask ourselves one fundamental question. Do we as Catholics believe that Scripture is inspired? If it is, that means, according to the definition which Pius XII gave of inspiration, that God is responsible for every single word in Scripture. Second, do we believe that Moses actually wrote the Pentateuch? And so and by that we mean in the sense that God inspired him to take the particular things and to write them down. If we believe that, then God is a more sufficient cause of certitude than any scientist, any kind of theory that could come along. You know, one of the beauties of COVID, by the way, not that there were too many of them, was the fact that they kept telling us, trust the science, trust the science, trust the science. Now, nobody trusts the scientists because they found out they lied to us. Well, if they did it then people are like, well, wait a minute, when else have they lied to us? And so now this is actually a key time because now evolution, people are actually taking a serious look. Well, maybe evolution isn't so true after all. But if sacred Scripture and tradition are true, then Eve was described by Adam as the mother of all of the living. That means there is no mother before her. If this were true, the entire story of man's creation in the book of Genesis and his fall would not be true. If man did not fall in the manner in which it is described in Genesis, then Christ would not have come to redeem man because there would be no original sin as such, as Hugh just got done saying. Moreover, man would not be created by God and therefore a special creation of God, but just the product of some aliens. Pius II, in his letter Cum Sicut, states that he condemns, I should say, the proposition that, quote, God created another world than this one, and that in its time many other men and women existed, and that consequently Adam was not the first man. Let me reread that. The Church has condemned this proposition. God created another world than this one, and that in its time many other men and women existed, and that consequently Adam was not the first man. Now, I wasn't going to go into this, but I think I will. If you look at the hierarchy of being, there is a gap between the animals and the angels. And human beings, because of their specific difference of having reason, is the being that bridges the gap between us and the angels. In fact, it says in Scripture, God created man a little less than the angels. Now, if that's the case, then if there are aliens on another planet, and if they're superior to us in some manner, then that actually means that the hierarchy of being does not actually apply in the way that we have always understood it. It would actually mean that man is not the thing that bridges the gap between the angels and men. In fact, the general consensus of the fathers was, if I remember reading it correctly, was that Adam, because he had infused knowledge, his IQ was such that it was just below the intelligence of the lowest angel. That's how intelligent he actually was. This is why when you hear these stories about, they'll discover some axe in the Alps, and they're just like, oh, this throws our dating all off because they were doing this kind of metallurgy at this time. And I'm like, well, maybe there's a problem with your timeline. Because why? Adam knew metallurgy. He taught it to his sons and grandsons. This is actually why we see in Scripture there is talk about cities within the first, second, and third generations. We're not talking about little towns. This is why, when I hear women say, oh man, I just had 5 kids, this is rough. Women, when people lived 800 years old, women were in childbearing years for 450 years. And God said to Eve, I'm going to multiply your conceptions. So I don't want to hear it, right? Okay. The point I'm drawing out is that the whole point in that whole excursion there was to point out the fact that the specific difference that makes us different from an animal is the fact that we have reason and an immortal soul. What makes us different from an angel is the fact that we have a body. So we are the bridge and the gap. If there's other aliens somewhere else, that means they have to be humans or hominoid in some fashion, which means that their specific difference, which is reason, because the definition of man is a rational animal. The specific difference would not be any different than us. And therefore, if that's true, then it would fall under this condemnation, that hypothesis that there's other aliens elsewhere.